Hey guys, today I'm talking about a powder you can create from something that you would normally just throw in the trash and that you wouldn't even keep. But this powder is easy to make and it will act as a fungicide, a nutritional supplement, and will keep insects away from many of your plants, especially if you're growing a vegetable garden like me. Insects are always a problem around my garden, especially around June, July, August. They're just non-stop insect problems. So this will help you. It will act in so many ways to benefit your plants. You can use this on shrubs, trees, and like I said, vegetables, but it's not limited to just that. Flowers, ornamentals, annuals. I'm sure I'll get that question, so I just want to throw that out there, that this isn't limited just to a vegetable garden. I'm going to show you an easy way to make this. You can make it for absolutely free from, like I said, refuge thing you would normally throw in the trash. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you how to do is to make a homemade dehydrator, because that's what you're going to need. You're going to need to dehydrate the primary component of this powder. And what we'll do is I'm going to take some extra wide aluminum foil. We want it to be the shiny side up. You have a kind of a dull side here, and you have a little bit more shiny side. So we're going to put that. I hope I'm not making too much noise. You can actually hear my voice here over my microphone. But now put that at the bottom of your plastic tub. Any type of tub will work. You don't have to have one this size. You can make it smaller or even larger depending on what you want. Then you're going to take some cling wrap and you're going to put over the entire length of it. You'll need 2 pieces, and you may need something like painter's tape to hold it to each side, but you just want to put it all the way across. You might need 2 rows of it, and like I said, you just need to make sure you put it on both sides to keep insects and other animals from getting to it. Just put it all the way across, tape it all the way around the perimeter, and then we'll add our primary component to our fungicide, our nutritional supplement, and our insect repellent. That's completely 100% organic. Now, if you don't want to go to all the trouble making a dehydrator, you can just use your oven and a cookie sheet. And what you're doing is you're going to take some oranges, and you're not just limited to oranges. I have some lemons and grapefruit around the greenhouse, and I wanted to say that lemons may actually work better because they're more potent. But the thing is, I don't go through a lot of lemons, but I go through in the wintertime. I'm constantly eating oranges for the natural vitamin C. If you're buying store-bought, orange juice, a lot of times once it has been heated, or what they call, I'm trying to remember the name of it, when they heat the orange juice to kill any bacteria in it, a lot of times they also killed a lot of the benefits to it. So making your own orange juice is a lot healthier for you. So I do that through the winter just to help boost my immune system. But any type of oranges, any type of lemons, and even grapefruit will work. You're not limited to just the oranges, but I use oranges because that's what I have a lot of. Once I get the oranges, I'm going to peel them very carefully and separate them from any flesh. Take a spoon and wipe off any possible residue. Now, this has been sitting on my kitchen counter for about 24 hours, and it's dried out pretty good, but it's still very flexible, as you can see. So what you want to do is you want to either put them in an oven at 200 degrees for about 2 to 3 hours, depending on your oven and your humidity in the air and things like that, but you want them as dry as possible. This one will not break, as you can see. This one that was in the dehydrator, I don't know if you can hear this, I'll bring it closer to the camera, but it snaps like a potato chip. You can't quite hear it from that distance, I'm sure. But once you put them in there, let them stay in there for an entire day, and you need a lot of sunlight. You want to do this not in the winter time, you want to do it in a little bit warmer time of the year. So early to mid-spring will probably be the earliest you could do this, because you're not going to create a lot of intense heat inside of here when it's cold. You want to keep that, and you might even keep one edge open to help some of the moisture evaporate out of your homemade dehydrator. Okay, so this is my super simple setup food dehydrator, or my peel dehydrator. I've used just common, ordinary painter's tape. Anything I'm using in this video, from sprayers, painter's tapes, I'll put a link in the description so you can just have it shipped to you if you don't want to go to the hardware store and pick up some of this stuff. But anyways, I've taken a fork and I'm putting a few holes in the corners to help a little bit of the moisture escape, because you want it to be as dry as possible. And I'm going to open it up and let you hear. Hold it close to the microphone. Let's see if you can hear this. Take my microphone off here and let you hear how dry this is. Just like a potato chip, extremely dry. This took about an entire afternoon for these to dry out, maybe 6 to 8 hours, and they're nice and dry. And now we'll go on to the next step, to creating our fungicide, our nutritional supplement, and our insect repellent. All right, so I'm going to open this up and I'm going to take all of my orange peels out. And like I said, the only thing you'd probably need to put some new on there is some of this saran wrap. You can reuse the aluminum foil over and over, and of course the plastic tub will last virtually forever. And we're going to put these in my dedicated blender that I use around the greenhouse. My wife asked me not to use the expensive Ninja blender anymore because it was doing a little bit of damage to some of the interesting things I was blending in it. But we're just going to put that into our blender. No moisture left in them at all. Sounds like a lot of potato chips I'm putting into the blender. And we're going to blend this until it becomes a nearly, not baby powder, but a pretty fine powder. All right, so we're going to blend this for a solid 3 to 4 minutes until we get this into our powder. All right, so there's a couple of different ways to use this, and like I said, this doesn't have to be a perfectly fine powder, but you want to blend it, like I said, for a few minutes. And you can see that there is some that is just the consistency of a really fine powder. There's some larger pieces in here, and that's okay, because like I said, we're going to use this in 2 different ways. We're going to use this as a liquid. We're going to spray it directly on the plants, the underside of the leaves, everywhere around the plant to prevent fungal diseases, bacterial growth, insect problems, and help nutrition. And this will not hurt 99.9% of plants. However, I will say that you need to do a test spray on a few leaves to make sure it doesn't react negatively. You're going to use this about 1 ounce to a gallon. So I've got a huge backpack sprayer, or I have something like this solo sprayer that has it. I can go to the underside of leaves and spray like that. Now the solo sprayer, I've got 3 or 4 around the greenhouse. I highly recommend having this for any type of gardening. It really works well. So I'll put a link to this, especially because this is one I really highly recommend. So like I said, we're going to put about 1 ounce to a gallon. This isn't a gallon, so we're going to dilute it down a little bit. As I said earlier, this acts as a fungicide, and one of the things you can add to it to prevent diseases of any type is just some common Listerine. Now, Listerine, just a small of it, you don't want it highly concentrated, but I would say also about 1 ounce of Listerine to a gallon, and you don't even have to use the Listerine brand. A lot of times at the dollar and discount stores, you can find the generic form of Listerine that will really help. A lot of gardeners don't realize this, but Listerine works great as a disease preventer, a fungal preventer, and it works great around the garden. It won't hurt your plants at all, as long as you don't oversaturate it in a highly concentrated amount. So like I said, about 1 ounce to a gallon of the Listerine and about 1 ounce of this powder in our gallon sprayer. And I'll show you some other types of sprayers that I use for this type of project. Now, since I'm not mixing a full gallon, I'm just going to take a teaspoon just for the video purposes and put it into a mason jar. I'm going to add some collected rainwater. If there's any way you can make a rainwater catch, that's always a great idea. I'm going to mix this almost to the top, just not quite, so I can mix it by hand. And I want to show you how to get this into your sprayer without causing a problem for your sprayer. So you want to mix this, allow it to sit for a minimum of an hour to allow all the oils to mix in well, because there's a lot of oils and citrus peels, and you want those into your liquid. So even putting it out in the hot sun is a great idea because it allows it to mix well. So we're just going to mix it there and let it sit for an hour, and then we'll add it to our little solo spray here. But I want to show you a couple of other types of sprayers. If you have a large garden, or if you're going to spray this on a larger plant like a 10, 15, 20-foot tree, I'll show you a type of sprayer that you can use that will work great on things like that. But just for today, I'm doing some small tomato plants. I started as seed in the greenhouse late winter, and they're called mortgage lifter. I've never tried that type before, and I saw the seeds and I've just said I've got to try that because I've read a few things about mortgage lifter tomatoes. You might want to take a look into it. There's an interesting story behind them too, but they're a very large sandwich or kind of a beefsteak type tomato. Now, there's a couple of ingredients that are completely optional and you're not required to use them, but I use them because I think it helps the process a lot more. I use Listerine. Like I said, the generic form of Listerine is so cheap at the dollar store, so I would buy it in the large containers. But also, to get the entire formula to sticking to the plant better as we spray it with our sprayer, I use Castile soap, and it helps this stick to the plant, and it keeps the insects and diseases away even better. So you can buy this online. Like I said, I'll put a link to that in the I say artificial Listerine, but it's just the generic form of Listerine. I add that to the sprayer, 1 ounce of the soap per gallon and 1 ounce of the Listerine per gallon. Put it into my large sprayer so I can go over the entire garden at one time. But for today, I'm just going to show you, if you have a small garden, you can use something like a small solo sprayer. And these work extremely well and they last a long time. And it has the ability to spray leaf undersides like that. You spray from above, and it's just a well-made sprayer that I keep buying over and over because I have so many different types of products I use in the sprayers. All right, so we don't want to clog up our sprayer, so we need to filter it, any of the larger pieces, because it can clog inside of these little fine filters inside of there. So you want to make sure that once you've allowed it to sit for a while, that you do a filtration of the liquid, because as you can see, there are some larger parts in there. But I'm going to look for my, this right here, my just a rag. You can use a t-shirt, you can use a clean shop rag, whatever you have around, and you're just going to slowly pour that in there and allow it to filter. And this will prevent any clogging of your sprayer. You have to do it a little bit slow to make sure it doesn't make a mess. But just put that in there, the whole mason jar, and then we'll take it out to the garden. I'm going to show you 2 ways you can use this powder. Not just the spray, but there's another way to use it. And if you don't want to go to the process of dehydrating it, you can go with just taking a zester or a cheese grater and taking some of the outside. Now this obviously wouldn't work for your sprayer because it's not fine enough and it's not going to mix well enough with your water. But you can put this at the base of the plant, and this will also help with nutrition and keeping insects away. So I would recommend actually doing both. If you have enough lemon, limes, grapefruits, or orange peels, you can do both. With me, I have tons of these during the wintertime. And just keep them in the freezer. Don't allow mold to grow on them, and then you can use it in the springtime when you start your garden. Now, before I head out and show you the application process around my tomatoes that I'll be planting today, I want to show you a few types of sprayers that I use around the garden. And I talked about the solo sprayer. I use it in small projects and small areas, like maybe planting a few tomatoes here and there. You have a hose-in sprayer that works really great that you can hook up to your hose in. You can do the same process. Make sure you filter obviously everything so you don't clog it up while it's working there. But this is really great for spraying trees, and it has a huge reach if you have to get up really high. But the workhorse of the entire garden is my, I believe this is Chapin brand. I think Black & Decker used to make it, but I believe they discontinued. But I believe Chapin still makes this 20-volt sprayer. It truly is the workhorse of my entire vegetable garden, bonsai garden. And I have 2 different sprayers. I have one used for more toxic chemicals that I have to use around some of the garden, and then more the organic. So one is organic and one is more not so organic. So I would highly recommend getting one of these if you want to do some easier garden where you don't have to pump. I used to use the kind that you had to constantly pump it where you're working in the garden, and this makes it so much easier to work around your garden applying different products. So again, I believe Chapin, but I'll put a link in the description. So let's plant our mortgage lifter, and I'm going to try to spread these because I think I have 8 of these. But I just want to kind of plant deep and just get nice and deep in there because it will sprout new roots along its stem there. And we're just going to put that down in there. Kind of mound the soil up around it there. And I've talked many times about micro irrigation and how important it is around my vegetable garden. I would highly recommend you watching that video. I'll try to link it, if I can find it, I'll link it up above right here. So there we have that. And what I want to do is I want to add some of the powder from our peel, and we're going to add it around the base of the plant, about a 2 to 3 inch barrier. And that's going to help, like I said, with adding nutrition to the soil. It's going to act as an insect repellent and help kill some of the funguses and diseases that might still be in the soil. So we're just going to put that all the way around, maybe 2 tablespoons. And then the second way we're going to use this is we're going to use our solo sprayer. Super easy to use. A little test there. We want to make sure we have it at the right kind of a mist spray. We don't want it to be a stream. Not quite a mist there. Let's turn that up a little bit more. There we go. Now some mist. We're just going to mist spray this, not too heavy. Underside of leaves, you can do that with a solo spray. You can come from the underside and just give it a nice liberal amount there. And so that way our tomato plant is protected from insects, diseases. It adds nutrition to the soil, and it just really makes a huge difference throughout the growing season. I'd recommend doing this once at planting and maybe once midway through the growing season, because this is going to break down over time through rain and sunlight. All right, so the next plant, I'm going to show you a little bit different way to use our orange peels. And like I said, in the greenhouses, it just depends on preference what you want to do, but I think the powder may work a little bit better. But if you don't want to go to all the trouble of making the dehydrator, you can go this route, and that is by grating it with either a lemon zester, and you can see there's a lot more moisture in it. And you can just do the same thing, put it around the base of whatever plant you're using, whether tomato, cucumber, squash, and that's going to help, like I said, with nutrition. It has a natural fungicide effect to it, a disease killing effect, and so that way your tomatoes are off to a head start. Whether you're growing any type of vegetable, I would recommend doing that. And like I said, I do this on a lot of different plants that I'm planting in the garden, because we have a huge insect and humidity problem which creates a lot of diseases in my garden. So that's two different ways you can use something that you might normally throw away. You can store this, make sure you store it in a cool, dry place. You don't want it to have humidity, because it'll kind of stick together and it may go bad and have a little bit of mold growing in it. So keep it in a very dry state. You don't want it to, like, I don't leave this in my greenhouse. I bring this back inside the house and put it inside the pantry where it stays really dry. So guys, that's one of the things I think is really great, is you can take something that you would naturally throw in the trash and you can turn it into something that really benefits you. A lot of people have asked me, how do I heat my greenhouse to keep my tomatoes from dying before springtime warms up enough to keep them alive on its own? I've got about half a dozen homemade heater videos that I've used around the greenhouse, and I've created different types. Some work better than others. Some work all night. Some work really putting out a lot of heat, and some put out just a little heat. I'll put my favorite heater right here so you can take a look at that video. But guys, I really appreciate you watching. If you have any questions or comments, please become a public subscriber first, because I always put those people to the front of the line, subscribers anyways, because I get so many comments. It's hard to answer everyone's question in a timely manner. I sometimes get to them, but it may take me a week to get around to answering all the comments. So guys, I really appreciate you watching, and have a great day.